Were you with us some time back when we were talking about the new policies at the Twin Falls schools about to make life easier for those students who don't know if they're a boy or a girl? There's only a handful of schools in Idaho have actually got Teton. I think was the other school systems have gone ahead and made these changes, which are recommended by the folks in Boise at the State Education Department. 944, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 48. If we'd, when I was in school back in the 60s and 70s, if we'd gone and said to our teachers or our principals or somebody at school in authority that we weren't sure and that we wanted to use the girls' room, they would have smacked us aside the head. Then we would have gone home and said, oh, Mr. Abbott smacked me aside the head. And my dad would have said, what did you do? And that would have been the end of it. I hear these stories, and yet you've got these school districts who are bending over backwards. Johnny still can't read in many cases, but by golly, if he wants to use the ladies' room, we'll make sure that he can do that. I bring this up because of something I happened to see this morning before I hit air. About 2 hours before I was on air, I was doing some light reading at the Daily Signal, which is a publication of the Heritage Foundation. It's 9:45. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. A school, and the telephone number, by the way, 736-0300, 736-0300. A school in suburban Chicago is being sued by the federal government. When it comes, the writer says, to locker rooms, does a public school have the right to say it should be restricted to the same students of the same physiological sex? Right now, a school district north of Chicago is squaring off with the federal government on that question. Transgender students can, quote, use restrooms in accordance with their gender identity as there are private stalls available, unquote. Transgender students, quote, can participate on sex-identified sports teams, unquote. In other words, if you were born as a male and have a male physique, you can play on the girls' team if you identify as a female. You'll score a lot more points that way when you play basketball, I suppose. I don't know that the other students will respect that. They would not have in my day. If I had said, look, I'm going to go over there and play soccer with the girls, and then I'm going to dominate the game. Isn't that like Andy Kaufman when he used to wrestle women? He was meant to point out how ludicrous that simply was. Now, according to the writer, those policies are not good enough for President Obama's Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. Yeah, they probably have a staff of thousands, all making $150,000 to $200,000 a year, just looking to pick fights with school systems all over the country. The Office of Civil Rights has taken the position that the district's decision to not allow unrestricted access to the locker room is inadequate and discriminatory. I mean, when does this stop? I mean, it is just so absolutely insane, and the government is promoting it. Read that again. A school district is facing the loss of federal funds because they won't allow a student born the opposite sex access to a same-sex locker room, and now that student has filed a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. How many 16-year-old boys would like a walk through that girl's locker room? Better yet, if they can convince the powers that be that they've at least, I just suddenly started feeling like a girl, so I think I should be able to go hang out in their locker room and shower with them. This is a recipe, I tell you, for disaster. As I mentioned in a blog post a few weeks ago, this was a vastly underreported story in Twin Falls. There was not a lot of attention given to this, that your school system has buckled to this type of political correctness. As I mentioned in a blog post some weeks ago, the very same week, in Toronto, which is in Ontario, which is in the very liberal country of Canada, they've decided that their policy about transgendered bathrooms is failing. It's not working. Why? Because guys who claim they are ladies are going inside and looking up the real ladies' skirts. That's why. And the real ladies aren't happy about that. Here you've got America, not especially among the left. They're knickers and knots because they're supposedly a campus rape culture. It used to in the old days just be called somebody got too drunk and somebody else got too drunk and they hooked up. It's not right, but it used to happen. Now it's rape. And, that's just how it's said to be. And men are always oppressors and women are always victims, unless that man suddenly wants to wear a dress one day and claim that he's a woman. And then all of a sudden he's a victim too. But they're discovering in Canada people are using this just as an excuse for a cheap thrill. Do you think it could happen here in the United States? I mean, I knew a lot of clever guys around the high school when I was back there in, 1978 or so, and they were the type of guys who could have figured this one out quickly. They wouldn't have cared if somebody had mocked them for wearing the dress and claiming they were a woman. They would have winked, in fact, at the other guys, letting them in on what was going on. Under today's rules, if somebody said, no, you can't do that, you can sue. And then you win the lawsuit, they can allow you to go into the ladies' room and the locker room. I'm sorry, but we need someone with a really, really strong... If the republic is dead, then we need some general to come in who's going to say enough, who's going to roll the tanks down Pennsylvania Avenue and up to Capitol Hill and say, you people get out, and you get out now. And then he's going to roll those tanks into Hollywood and say, and the rest of you, shut up. And we're going to impose what we call a new Pax Americana across the nation. And that simply is, we're going to turn the clock back a few decades, and people are going to be normal again. And at this point, if you're not normal, we're going to pack you off to an institution where you won't like it, and you'll get normal really fast if you'd like to get out. 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Wow, we're almost done today. Mike Gallagher is coming up next in just a moment. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm opposed to that type of government control. But what have we got? We've got the tyranny of just madmen already, and we've got to stop it. Gallagher is brought to you exclusively by the financial advisors at Waddell & Reed in Twin Falls. The telephone number is 736-6563. That's 736-6563.